Welcome back to Utah Highways and another trail report. Today I'm going to tell you about something that I've been thinking lately is really underrated. Like I was surprised how often or how infrequently actually I hear people talking about this one. And this is the loop hike you can do between Slide Canyon, which is above the Y in South Provo, and Slate Canyon. Well, I did it last night and I was reminded why it's not as popular as I was thinking it should be. So let me explain why. Now, usually I would recommend starting at the Y, which you can access by turning east on Provo 820 north, I believe, and then you just head up east and up the mountain from there. You can find it. That way you can enjoy your walk down Slate Canyon more. But in my case, I went counterclockwise because it was getting late. I decided to do this at 7 p.m., so I had 2 hours roughly till dusk, and I wanted to get to the top by that time, so I'd be coming down the Y in the dark, and that worked out fantastic. So the first mile up Slate Canyon, which you can access if you're in Provo, take 300 south, and that winds up to Slate Canyon Drive. And then right as that hill crests, before you start hitting all the developments on your left on the east, if you're going south, then you just follow that road up, and there's a couple nice parking lots there. I have seen some shattered glass in those parking lots, so this place is not completely immune to vehicle break-ins. So do be aware of that. I hope it's not that common, but that is a problem around here. And by the way, if you ever see someone doing that, just call the cops immediately. Let's catch these horrible people and see if we can diminish that problem. Anyway, the first mile up Slate Canyon is, it's a climb, but it's relatively mild. It's fairly comfortable. But don't worry, because the next 2 miles gets, I guess I'd say, slightly to significantly steeper. You can tell the difference. And then as you get up to where it begins to open up and where you can see Coral Mountain, which is just south of Provo Peak, like the horizon up there above you, you start to hit some more lush. It seems a little bit less dry. And it's got some, it's pleasant to be up there. This is mid-July, and it's still really green up there. So it really changes a lot once you get behind that front range. Now, right about at mile 3, you're going to hit a very brief flat spot, and it's beautiful. You got some meadows there, and you're going to love that. But don't get too comfortable with this, because that last mile up to the summit there, to the apex, is even a little bit steeper. So that's 4 miles total from the pavilion, if you measure from the pavilion. And there are some mismatching signs, like down low as you just enter Slate Canyon, there's a sign that says 3.7 miles up until you hit the Slide Canyon Trail. But when you get up to the top and hit the Slide Canyon Trail, it says it's 3.5 miles down to the beginning, to the trailhead of Slate Canyon. So maybe they've rerouted the trail. Actually, I don't think so. No, it's a pretty established trail there. So just not quite consistent. And in that flat spot, by the way, you'll also see an area with a couple big rocks in it, and it's kind of some covered things, and you can hear the water running through pipes underneath. There used to be a spring there. There was a trough there with some dripping water which you could fill up from, but that's all underground now, so you'll have to wait till you get over the edge. I'll show you where there is a spring which is still accessible for you. So you head up the steeper trail there, and then it levels off a little bit, and you begin to see that horizon line, the dip in the mountains, and that is the top. And I just had this fantastic memory as I reached that of when I remember years ago I had run up Slide Canyon, and I was running through the trees, and I was just hot and sweaty, and I got to that kind of overlook there, and this breeze hit me, and it was so refreshing. It felt so good. So I just have great memories of it. It's one of the main reasons I love this hike, despite its steepness. So you start dropping down a little bit, And then you hit kind of a meadow, and right in that meadow there's a sign, and there's a trail that cuts off to your right, and that drops down into Rock Canyon. That's a fairly steep canyon there. And last time I was there, I rode up it on a motorcycle for a search for a kid we unfortunately found at the base of the cliff just south of the Y there. But as you kind of cut down to the right, you can see a little tiny stream. There's a big bush right there, and the bush is kind of overgrown. There used to be a PVC pipe that stuck out of the hillside, and the water would drip from it, and that was convenient. It was getting dark, and I didn't bother to look closely into that bush that is overgrown to see if that's still there. But there is enough water. If you are at all desperate, go right ahead, I would think, and refill your water there. I always refer to this little opening, this meadow, as Maple Flats, by the way, but I just saw on a map that there's another spot labeled Maple Flats, so I'll show you where that is as we go by. So I started heading down, and by this time it is deep dusk, it's getting dark, and it was kind of fun to just walk confidently down. I didn't turn on my flashlight for a long time, and it was weird that I could just so confidently see where the trail was, even though it's so overgrown with all these bushes and plants and stuff. Luckily, the one log that would have caught me right in the shins was really white, so I could see that. Eventually, you're going to hit a spot where the trail does a little zig to the left, and then back right and down. And if you look kind of behind you to your right, you'll see that this is where the trail also climbs to the north to your right, and that's how you get up to the top of Y Mountain. And from this point on, the trail gets wider. Like that must be, or it gets more clear. That is, I was surprised how overgrown it was above this point. So that must be a much more popular hike. And then if you go down just a little bit, there's another trail that cuts off to your left, and that goes up to this meadow area you can kind of see here on the map, which I just saw as labeled as Maple Flats. So maybe that's the real Maple Flats, and maybe that's mislabeled. I'll have to do some more research, and I'll post that on the screen. From there, you drop down. There are a couple of rocky spots going around a few cliffs. And there's at one point it sounded a small rattlesnake rattled at me from one of the rocks about head level to my right as I went by, but I didn't worry too much about that. And then when you get to the Y, you got some nice benches there. Plop yourself down and spend some time, just look out over the city. It's nice. If you happen to be there at night, it's a particularly nice view. So I stayed there for about 20 minutes and just relaxed. And then you've got the nice steep-ish gravel road down to the bottom. And here you'll find some restrooms, and there's also a drinking fountain. You can refill your water there. You might want to let it run for a minute, see if it gets cooled down a little bit. And then just head back south, and you've got a lovely double-track dirt road that cuts all the way across. Here's a shot of just looking out at the city lights, looking back north as I walk south, and drops you right back into Slate Canyon. So my overall review is I do love this hike. Lately I've been running along that flat section just between the Y and this Slate, and just run over there in the mornings it's 1.5 miles across there, so it's a 3-mile run, nice half hour in the mornings, and I still like it, but it is steep, so be prepared for that. Bring plenty of water, or you may regret it. Bring a flashlight if you think you might be out after dark. And of course, layers of clothing, 10 essentials in case you're not there in the middle of the summer and you think it might get warmer. And watch your step for those snakes. I didn't see any. I heard the one. I didn't see any this time, but they are in the region. All in all, I'd give this a 7 stars, I guess. If you really want something steep, maybe it deserves an 8. I'm going to stick with 7. It has some nice views, some really nice views, but there are just other places that rate even better. So let's leave some room and not do too much grade inflation there. Enjoy, play safe,